The mysterious signal and the desperate queen. The night was quiet. Captain Daniel Reeves sat alone in his small space station, far from Earth. The stars outside the window looked peaceful, but Daniel knew space was never really quiet. It always whispered secrets to those who listened. And Daniel was listening. At exactly 2:47 a.m., the silence broke. A strange, faint signal crackled through his headset. It wasn't random noise. It was a voice, weak, repeating the same word again and again. Help. Daniel sat up straight. His heart beat faster. The voice didn't sound human. It was deeper, with a strange vibration. He adjusted the settings, trying to trace the source. The signal came from Orithis Prime, an uncharted planet with no known life. Daniel's curiosity burned. Why would an alien voice ask for help from a dead world? He opened his comms log and recorded the message. Distress signal detected from Orithis Prime. Unknown origin. Repeating the word help. His mind raced. He should report this to command, but he knew what they would say. Ignore it. Humans had learned to fear strange signals after the Centauri incident, when a rescue team vanished. But Daniel wasn't like most people. If someone, or something, was asking for help, he couldn't turn away. The decision was made. Daniel rushed to his small shuttle, the Pathfinder. He strapped in, set the coordinates, and engaged the engines. As the ship shot through the cold emptiness of space, he stared at the planet ahead, his heart pounding with questions. The landing on Orithis Prime was rough. The planet's atmosphere was thin, making the descent tricky. Outside, the landscape stretched like a gray desert under a pale red sky. Jagged rocks rose like broken teeth. No sign of life. Daniel activated his helmet mic. "Hello. This is Captain Daniel Reeves from Earth. I heard your distress signal. Do you need help?" Silence answered. He tried again, his voice steady. "If you need help, I'm here." A cold breeze stirred the dust, whispering through the cracks in the rocks. The signal was gone now, leaving Daniel with a hollow feeling. Maybe it was just old tech, broken and forgotten. He turned to go back to his ship. That was when the shadow moved. A massive, towering figure stepped out from behind a rock formation. Daniel froze. His training screamed, "Run." His instincts said, "Stay." The creature stood at least 9 feet tall, with a body like a twisted exoskeleton. Its limbs were long and sharp, its skin a deep metallic blue. Large, reflective eyes locked onto him. It looked like an insect, an alien queen from some forgotten nightmare. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His pulse raced. He didn't move. The creature tilted its head, then spoke without moving its mouth. The voice was clear, echoing in his mind. "Human, you heard me." Daniel swallowed hard. "Yes, I heard your signal. You asked for help." The alien queen took a step closer. The ground trembled beneath her weight. Daniel's muscles tensed, but he stayed still. "I am Threxia, queen of the Orethian hive. Or what remains of it." Her voice was sad, almost broken. "I called for help. I did not think anyone would answer." Daniel's fear softened. Sadness was universal. He lowered his weapon. "I'm here. What do you need?" Threxia's eyes shimmered. Her voice trembled. "I am the last of my kind. I cannot continue my species. My hive is gone. My children never came." Daniel's heart tightened. An alien queen who could not become a mother. A species facing extinction. He didn't know what to say. "I don't know if I can help with that," he said softly, "but I'll try. I promise." Threxia stood still. The air grew colder around them. The silence stretched too long. Then she lifted her head. "Thank you, human, but you do not understand the danger you have stepped into." Daniel frowned. Danger. The ground beneath them trembled again, this time with a deep rhythmic vibration. The queen turned her head sharply toward the horizon. Daniel followed her gaze. From the distant hills, black, chittering shapes swarmed across the desert. Hundreds, maybe thousands, moving fast. "The Scarn," Phyrexia whispered. "They heard my signal too." Daniel's throat went dry. "Who are they?" "Hunters," she said. "They want me as a host. They want the life I cannot give. And now, they know you are here." The Scarn drew closer. Their bodies were insect-like but twisted, their eyes glowing a sickly yellow. The sound of their clicking jaws filled the air. Daniel's heart slammed against his chest. He gripped his weapon. The alien queen beside him shifted into a battle stance. "Run if you must, human," Phyrexia said. "But I will not leave. I have nowhere left to go." Daniel tightened his grip and shook his head. "I promise to help. I don't break promises." The Scarn screamed as they charged. The alien queen's secret. The desert air grew thick with dread as the Scarn closed in. Their chittering echoed across the barren land, a dreadful chorus that sent shivers down Daniel Reeves's spine. He tightened his grip on his plasma pistol, though the weapon felt insignificant against the sea of nightmare creatures charging toward him. Beside him, Phyrexia, the alien queen, shifted her stance. Her bioluminescent eyes narrowed. She extended her long, clawed arms, and the plates of her exoskeleton shimmered as if charged by some unseen force. Her voice whispered through his mind, calm yet filled with grim resolve. "Stay close, human. The Scarn are relentless. They do not fear pain. They crave living hosts. If they take me, they will take you next." Daniel swallowed hard. "Good to know," he muttered. His pulse pounded in his ears. The Scarn were faster than he expected, their twisted, insect-like legs carrying them with terrifying speed. He fired the first shot. The plasma bolt lit up the night, striking the lead Scarn in the chest. The creature screeched as its shell cracked and its body collapsed in a heap. For a second, Daniel felt a flicker of hope, but the other creatures didn't even slow down. "They don't fear pain," he reminded himself. Beside him, Phyrexia raised her arms. The plates on her forearms vibrated, and suddenly, a pulse of blue energy shot out in a wide arc. The ground trembled as the wave slammed into the front line of the Scarn. The creatures were thrown back like rag dolls, their bodies twitching. Daniel's jaw dropped. What the hell was that? "Resonance shock," Phyrexia answered, her mental voice strained. "It repels them, for a time. But I cannot do it often. My energy is limited." The reprieve was brief. The surviving Scarn regrouped, their clicking jaws vibrating faster. The sickly yellow glow of their eyes locked onto Daniel and Phyrexia once more. The queen didn't wait. She turned and sprinted toward the rocky hills. Daniel followed, lungs burning as he tried to match her long, powerful strides. Behind them, the Scarn screeched and surged forward. They reached the base of a cliff where a narrow crack split the rock face. Phyrexia stopped and gestured toward it. "Inside. Quickly." Daniel squeezed through the gap, and the queen followed, pressing herself sideways to fit her broad body into the narrow space. The moment she entered, she extended her arm and scraped her claws across the wall. The stone responded with a deep hum as an unseen mechanism activated. The crack sealed behind them, trapping the Scarn outside. Daniel collapsed to the ground, panting. "Please tell me, they can't get in here." "Not easily," Phyrexia said, her voice softer now. "The rock is infused with harmonic frequencies. The Scarn are sensitive to such vibrations. It will hold them, for now." Daniel pushed himself to his feet and shone his flashlight around the space. The narrow passage opened into a vast cavern. Towering crystal-like formations jutted from the floor and ceiling, glowing faintly. Strange symbols lined the walls, spiraling like ancient writing. This is more than a cave," Daniel whispered. "It was once a birthing chamber," Phyrexia said, her gaze distant. My ancestors built this sanctuary to nurture life, but those days are gone. She walked toward one of the crystal pillars and placed a hand on its surface. The crystal responded to her touch, glowing brighter. Shadows of figures appeared, tall, regal beings with similar insect-like forms. In one image, a queen sat surrounded by smaller, younger creatures. The Orethian hive was once strong, Phyrexia said. We thrived on unity, balance, and the life force of our offspring. But we misjudged our place in the galaxy. When war came, we were not prepared. Our enemies unleashed biogenic weapons that attacked our genetic core. The hive queens became sterile. Our future died with us. Daniel's chest tightened. So you sent the distress signal, hoping someone might help. Yes. For years, I searched for a way to repair the damage. Our technology was advanced, but genetic engineering on this scale, it is beyond my knowledge, and now I am the last. Daniel stepped closer to the crystal. The faces of the young Orethians stared back at him, children who never had a chance to live. Maybe I can help, he said, surprising himself. Phyrexia turned her glowing eyes toward him. You? How? I'm a bioengineer. I've worked with genetic sequencing back on Earth. We've done some pretty amazing things with fertility treatments and hybrid DNA stabilization. If I can access your genetic data, maybe I can find a way to reverse the damage. Phyrexia's mind voice filled with a faint, cautious hope. You would do this for me? For a dying alien queen? Daniel nodded. You're not just a queen. You're the last of your kind. If I can help you, maybe we can stop your species from disappearing forever. The cavern filled with silence. The crystal images flickered, as if listening. Thank you, human, Phyrexia said finally. You are unlike the others who came before. They feared us. You offer hope. Daniel gave a half smile. Yeah, well, I'm stubborn like that. Suddenly, the ground trembled. The walls vibrated, and cracks formed in the crystal surfaces. A sharp metallic screech echoed through the cave. Phyrexia's eyes widened. The Skarn. They found the resonance frequency. They're breaking through. Daniel's mind raced. He scanned the room, searching for an escape. The only other exit was a narrow tunnel winding deeper into the earth. We go that way, he said, pointing. The core chambers are down there. We will be trapped. Better trapped than dead. The first crack split open, and a Skarn limb punched through, its claws scraping against the stone. Daniel fired his plasma pistol, but the creature didn't flinch. Go, Phyrexia shouted. They sprinted toward the tunnel as the Skarn broke through behind them. The air filled with the stench of burning rock and the predator's hungry screeches. Daniel ran faster than he thought possible. The queen's footsteps thudded behind him. The tunnel twisted downward, taking them deeper into the unknown. The light from the entrance disappeared. Human, Phyrexia whispered in the dark. We go now to the heart of the hive, and the secret it holds. The hunters of Orethis. The tunnel twisted like a serpent through the heart of the mountain. Daniel Reeves ran with every ounce of strength he had, his breathing harsh inside his helmet. The sharp metallic screeches of the Skarn echoed behind him, growing louder with each passing second. The creatures were relentless. Beside him, Phyrexia moved with smooth, practiced agility. Her bioluminescent eyes glowed faintly, casting eerie patterns on the stone walls. Despite her larger frame, she kept pace with Daniel effortlessly. But her breathing was uneven, and her glowing eyes dimmed with each step. The resonance blast she had unleashed earlier had drained much of her strength. We must reach the core chamber, Phyrexia said through their mental link. It is the only place with defenses strong enough to stop the Skarn. Daniel nodded without slowing down. His legs burned, but he knew stopping wasn't an option. Behind them, the clicking grew louder. He risked a glance over his shoulder. The Skarn were close now. Dozens of shadowy forms twisted and skittered through the tunnel with terrifying speed. Their yellow eyes glowed like predatory lanterns, their mandibles clacking in anticipation. The creatures were a grotesque combination of hardened exoskeleton, spiked limbs, and gaping mouths lined with needle-like teeth. Daniel fired a quick shot over his shoulder. The plasma bolt struck the lead scarn square in the chest, burning a hole through its carapace. The creature shrieked and collapsed, but the others surged over its twitching body without hesitation. "They're not stopping," Daniel said, his voice tight. "They never do," Phyrexia answered. "The scarn feed on desperation. They can sense fear and hope." Daniel didn't understand the full meaning of her words, but he understood the danger. Ahead, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. The ceiling stretched high above them, disappearing into shadows. The walls shimmered with strange, bioluminescent veins that pulsed like a living organism. In the center stood an enormous crystalline structure, glowing faintly with soft blue light. "A hive core," Phyrexia said, her voice filled with both awe and sorrow. "This was once the heart of our civilization." The ground trembled. The scarn were almost at the tunnel's mouth. "How do we activate the defenses?" Daniel asked urgently. "The core responds to Orathian biosignatures. I must connect to it." Daniel scanned the room. "What do I do?" "Protect me, no matter what happens." Phyrexia moved to the base of the glowing core. A hollow pedestal extended from the ground, shaped like a cradle. She placed her hands on the surface and closed her eyes. The core responded instantly. The blue light brightened, spreading through the veins in the walls like a network of nerves awakening after a long sleep. The ground shook again. Daniel turned to face the tunnel, pistol raised. The scarn poured into the chamber like a living wave. Their clicking became a deafening roar. Daniel fired rapidly, hitting the nearest creatures. Plasma bolts cracked through exoskeletons, but the scarn came too fast, too many. The lead creature lunged. Daniel ducked, firing upward. The shot hit the scarn's neck, sending it crashing down beside him. Another pounced from the side. Daniel raised his arm instinctively, and the creature bit down on his forearm. The reinforced suit absorbed some of the pressure, but the pain shot through his body like fire. "Get off me," he shouted, slamming the creature against the crystal wall. It released him with a screech, and Daniel fired point-blank into its face. More were coming. Too many. His pistol beeped, low power. "Phyrexia, I hope you're almost done." The core's light spread further across the floor. Symbols appeared on the smooth surface, glowing in patterns that looked like genetic sequences. Phyrexia's body trembled. "It resists me. The hive core does not recognize me as a fertile queen. It senses the damage in my genes." The scarn closed in. Daniel gritted his teeth and threw a plasma grenade into the thickest part of the swarm. The blast sent bodies flying, but the creatures kept coming. He turned toward Phyrexia. Her body sagged, her bioluminescence nearly gone. "If it needs a fertile queen," Daniel said through ragged breaths, "can we trick it? Change your genetic signal somehow." "Perhaps, but I lack the knowledge to rewrite the core's recognition protocols." Daniel knelt beside her and opened his backpack, pulling out his portable DNA sequencer. "Let me try." Phyrexia's eyes widened. "This technology, it's human." "Yeah, well, humans have been helping infertile couples for decades. If your genetics are anything like ours, maybe I can simulate the signals the core expects." The scarn reached the base of the core platform. Daniel fired his last plasma bolt, dropping another creature. Two more climbed over the body, mandibles clicking with hunger. "Hurry, human." Daniel connected the sequencer to the crystal surface. The interface was unfamiliar, but patterns of genetic code appeared. He recognized base pairs, though the sequences were far more complex than human DNA. He quickly adjusted the output. "I'm going to mimic hormonal markers for reproductive activation. The core doesn't need you to actually be fertile, just to think you are." He keyed in the command and hit activate. The hive core glowed bright white. The walls vibrated with a deep hum. The Skarn hesitated, their eyes flicking toward the core, as if sensing something ancient and dangerous awakening. Threxia gasped and arched her back. The veins on her exoskeleton pulsed with energy. The core's glow condensed into a beam of light that shot upward into the ceiling. The Skarn screeched and recoiled. The hum grew louder, resonating through the stone. The entire chamber shook. Daniel grabbed Threxia's arm. "What's happening?" "The hive core accepts me." Her mental voice trembled with disbelief. "It believes I carry life. It will defend us now." The beam of light split into dozens of streams, each one targeting a Skarn. The creatures howled as the energy struck them. Their bodies stiffened, then disintegrated into ash. The beam moved from one target to another with terrifying precision. Within seconds, the chamber was littered with smoking remains. The last Skarn shrieked and fled back into the tunnel. The core sealed the entrance with a wall of shimmering energy. Silence fell. Daniel collapsed to the ground, chest heaving. That was intense. Threxia stood, swaying slightly. Her eyes shone brighter than before. "The core's defenses are active again. We are safe. For now." Daniel looked at the glowing hive core. "We tricked it into thinking you're fertile. What happens now?" Threxia placed a hand on her abdomen. Her bioluminescent veins pulsed with a new golden hue. "The core is ancient and powerful. It did not merely accept the signal. It activated the dormant reproductive matrix within me." Daniel's eyes widened. "Wait, you're saying it actually made you fertile?" The queen nodded, her voice filled with wonder. "Yes, the impossible has happened. Life has returned to the Orethian queen." The human gamble. The cavern's soft hum filled the silence, the hive core's glow casting a faint golden light over the bodies of the fallen Skarn. Daniel Reeves sat with his back against a crystalline wall, his chest heaving with each breath. His arm throbbed where the Skarn had bitten through his suit, and his mind raced to make sense of what had happened. Threxia stood beside the core, her eyes glowing with a deep amber light. Her body seemed stronger now, her bioluminescent veins pulsing with a golden hue that hadn't been there before. Her slender fingers rested on her abdomen, and for the first time since they'd met, Daniel saw something in her expression that looked like hope. "The core changed me," she said softly, her voice resonating in his mind. "It didn't just accept the false signal you created. It reactivated my dormant reproductive matrix. I am fertile." Daniel rubbed his temples. "So, you can have children now." She turned toward him, and the faintest trace of a smile crossed her insectoid features. "Yes, the Orethian hive will not die with me." Daniel let out a low, disbelieving laugh. "Well, that's incredible. I mean, I was just trying to trick the system. I never thought it would actually fix the genetic damage." "The core technology is ancient and powerful," Threxia said. "It was designed to preserve life at any cost. Your human technology acted as the missing key." Daniel gave a weak chuckle. Who knew Earth fertility tech would save an alien queen? The moment of relief didn't last long. A deep vibration rolled through the cavern, rattling the crystal structures. The golden veins on the walls dimmed, flickering uncertainly. Threxia's eyes narrowed. "The Skarn." Daniel scrambled to his feet. "I thought the core's defenses scared them off." "The core repelled the first wave, but the Skarn are adaptive. They will find another way." "Why are they so obsessed with you?" Threxia's eyes dimmed slightly. "The Skarn are parasites. They use living hosts to gestate their offspring. A fertile queen like me is the perfect host. If they capture me, they will infest me with their brood. The next generation of Skarn will be stronger, smarter, and unstoppable." Daniel's stomach turned. "So what do we do?" "We fight. But first, we prepare." The hive core pulsed with renewed energy as Threxia interfaced with its ancient systems. Daniel helped her activate dormant defense protocols while scanning the cavern for weak points. The core's advanced technology fascinated him. The glowing crystals weren't just decorative. They were neural conduits, part of a vast biocomputer network that connected to the planet itself. As they worked, Daniel asked, "How did the Scarn find you in the first place?" Phyrexia's voice turned somber. "The distress signal. I sent it long ago, hoping to reach a peaceful species. I never imagined the Scarn would hear it first. They tracked it across the stars. They knew fertility might return one day." Daniel clenched his jaw. "So we gave them exactly what they wanted by activating the core." "Yes, my fertility is both a gift and a beacon." A cold realization settled over Daniel. "That means they'll never stop." "Never." The ground trembled again. The Scarn were drilling through the outer rock, adapting to the core's defenses. Time was running out. Daniel paced in front of the core, thinking aloud. "We need a plan. The Scarn want you because you're fertile now. But what if we make them think you're dead?" Phyrexia tilted her head. "Explain." He pointed to the core. "This thing is connected to you biologically, right? It recognizes your genetic markers. If I can tweak those markers again, just enough to make the core think you've died, it might broadcast that death signal across its neural network. The Scarn are deeply connected to biological signatures. If they sense my death, they may retreat." "Exactly. But there's a risk. If I screw this up, it might actually kill you." Phyrexia's mandibles shifted into what Daniel realized was the Orethian version of a smile. "We Orethians have a saying, 'Life without risk is like a seed without soil. Do what you must, human.'" Daniel took a shaky breath and connected his portable DNA sequencer to the core interface again. The swirling symbols danced across the surface. His fingers hovered over the control pad. He turned to Phyrexia. "Ready? Do it." Daniel activated the sequencing override. The core shuddered. The golden veins on the walls dimmed, turning an eerie, sickly green. Phyrexia gasped, clutching her abdomen. Her body convulsed. Her knees hit the ground with a hollow thud. Her bioluminescent glow faded to almost nothing. "It's working," she whispered, eyes fluttering. Daniel's screen showed a dramatic drop in her cellular activity. Her body functions mimicked death perfectly. Outside the chamber, the Scarn screeches shifted in tone. The relentless clicking slowed, turning into confused, high-pitched chirps. Daniel's heart pounded as he checked the scanner. The Scarn biosignatures were retreating. "It's working," he said. "They're falling for it." But then, a new signature appeared. Larger, stronger. Daniel's stomach dropped. "Wait, something bigger is coming." Phyrexia lifted her head weakly. "The Scarn Queen. She will come to confirm my death herself." The walls cracked as something massive approached. The ground shook with each impact. The core's light sputtered, struggling to maintain its deception. "I am too weak to fight," Phyrexia said. "If the Scarn Queen reaches me, all is lost." Daniel's mind raced. He stared at the core, then at his DNA sequencer. One insane idea formed in his mind. What if we trick the core again? Instead of just making it think you're dead, what if we make it think you're something else entirely? "What do you mean?" He gripped the sequencer tightly. "We convinced it you're fertile. Now we make it think you're not Orethian. If it can't identify you as a queen, the Scarn won't recognize you as a host. Such a change could kill me." Daniel met her gaze. "Yeah, or it could save you." The cavern shook violently. The Scarn Queen was close. "Do it," Phyrexia said. Daniel's fingers flew over the sequencer. He reprogrammed the genetic markers to mimic something entirely new, an unclassified hybrid of human and Orethian DNA. The core resisted, its systems designed to preserve Orethian purity. "It's fighting the change," Phyrexia gasped. Daniel gritted his teeth. "Come on, you ancient piece of alien tech. Work with me." The Scarn Queen's shadow appeared at the entrance. The creature was enormous, twice the size of Phyrexia, with barbed legs and a grotesque, bloated abdomen. Its eyes glowed a deep crimson. The core beeped. The override completed. Phyrexia collapsed as the core's veins shifted from gold to a deep violet. The Skarn queen hissed, its antennae twitching as it tried to locate her. The predator advanced, mandibles clicking in confusion. It sniffed the air, then released a frustrated shriek. It couldn't find her. The Skarn queen slammed its limbs against the core in fury. Energy surged through the defenses, disintegrating the creature in a crackling blast of power. The remaining Skarn screeched in panic and flowed into the tunnels. Silence returned. Daniel knelt beside Phyrexia, his pulse racing. Her breathing was shallow, but she was alive. Her eyes fluttered open. "Did it work?" she asked weakly. Daniel smiled. "Yeah, the Skarn queen is dead. And as far as the core and the Skarn are concerned, you're not a queen anymore." Phyrexia's mandibles twitched in an exhausted smile. "You risked everything," she whispered, "and won." Daniel exhaled and sat beside her, the weight of the gamble settling on his shoulders. The Skarn were defeated, but they both knew it was only temporary. The true battle for the future of the hive was just beginning. The birth of new hope. The cavern lay in eerie silence after the Skarn queen's death. The massive insect-like corpse still smoldered where the core's defense beam had incinerated it, its twisted limbs frozen in agony. Daniel Reeves sat beside Phryxia's unconscious form, watching the faint rise and fall of her chest. The core's pulsing light had faded to a soft violet hue, its ancient systems recalibrating after the unprecedented genetic override. Daniel placed a hand on her arm. The exoskeleton, once cool and metallic, was now warmer and softer. The genetic manipulation had changed her in ways neither of them fully understood. "Hang in there, Phyrexia," he whispered. The queen stirred, her bioluminescent eyes fluttering open. The glow was different now, a soft, shifting blend of amber and pale blue instead of the usual golden light. Her gaze met his, and for a moment, neither spoke. The mental connection between them felt stronger than before, the thoughts more vivid. "Daniel." Her voice was weaker but clearer than usual, as though something fundamental had shifted. "Yeah, I'm here," he said, giving her a tired smile. Phyrexia sat up slowly, her body trembling from exhaustion. She looked around at the scorched cavern. The crystal veins in the walls were dim, their energy drained by the desperate battle. The Skarn were gone, but the faint vibrations of their retreat echoed through the rock. "The core," she said softly. "It's changed." Daniel followed her gaze to the hive core. The towering crystal structure, once a steady blue beacon of Orethian life, now pulsed with an irregular violet light. Strange symbols danced across its surface, patterns Daniel had never seen before. "I had to rewrite part of your genetic code," Daniel explained. "I merged some of your DNA with human sequences to hide you from the Skarn." The core adapted. Phyrexia pressed a hand to her abdomen. Her bioluminescent veins pulsed in response to the core's rhythm. "I feel different, stronger, but also disconnected from the hive's ancestral memory." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" "The core once linked me to the memories of my ancestors, queens who lived before me. Their guidance was always there, but now it is silent." Daniel's chest tightened with guilt. He had saved her life, but in doing so, he had severed her from the collective knowledge of her species. "I didn't know that would happen," he said softly. "I'm sorry." Phyrexia squeezed his arm gently with one of her clawed hands. "Do not apologize, human. You saved my life. You saved the future of my kind." She stood unsteadily and approached the hive core. The swirling symbols shifted, rearranging themselves in response to her presence. "The core recognizes me as something new, a hybrid. Not purely Orethian, but not human either." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "Then it worked. We tricked the Skarn into thinking you were dead, but we also created something entirely new." "Yes," she whispered. "I am no longer Phyrexia. Queen of the Orethian hive. I am something else. The core pulsed in response to her words. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. The crystal surface shifted to display a genetic map. Daniel squinted at the symbols. The double helix patterns were familiar yet alien. His eyes widened as he recognized the highlighted strand. "That's a gestation signature," he said, voice trembling. "You're pregnant." Phyrexia's eyes glowed brighter. She placed both hands on her abdomen. "Life," she whispered, awe in her voice. "The hive is reborn. The galaxy watches." Daniel paced the cavern, trying to wrap his mind around what had happened. Phyrexia sat cross-legged before the core, meditating as her body adjusted to the changes. "I don't get it," Daniel said aloud. "How did you get pregnant so fast?" "We just activated the core." "The Orethian reproductive matrix was never entirely dormant," Phyrexia explained. "The core preserved a seed of potential within me. When it recognized my fertility, it completed the process. But my genetic structure is altered now. This offspring will not be fully Orethian." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "It'll be part human." "Yes, a hybrid, the first of its kind." The weight of that realization hit him hard. They had inadvertently created a new life form, an entirely new species. Suddenly, the core emitted a sharp, oscillating tone. The cavern shook slightly as the crystals projected a holographic map into the air. Phyrexia's eyes widened. "The core has intercepted external communications. Someone is scanning the planet." Daniel stared at the glowing map. Several red markers blinked on the outer edges. The pattern was familiar. His stomach dropped. "That's a Terran fleet formation," he said grimly. "The humans found us." Human intervention. The comm unit on Daniel's wrist crackled to life. "This is Commander Elias Grant of the Terran fleet. We have detected unauthorized genetic activity and potential parasitic threats on Orithis Prime. Unknown vessel identified. Captain Daniel Reeves, respond immediately." Daniel cursed under his breath. "They're not here to help us. They're here to contain what they think is a biothreat." Phyrexia stood beside him. "They will not understand what we have done." "No, they won't. The Skarn invasion likely triggered quarantine protocols. Earth's defense network doesn't ask questions. They shoot first and study the ashes later." The comm crackled again. "Captain Reeves, respond, or we will initiate orbital sterilization protocols." Daniel's pulse raced. Orbital sterilization meant one thing. The fleet would fire neutron bombs at the surface, destroying all life on the planet. "Phyrexia, can the core generate a planetary shield?" "Yes, but only temporarily. The core's energy is depleted." "Do it." Phyrexia placed her hands on the core. The cavern vibrated as energy surged upward. On the surface, a shimmering shield spread across the planet's atmosphere. The comm crackled. "Planetary shield detected. Targeting systems compromised. Switching to manual override." Daniel opened his own comm link. "Fleet Command, this is Captain Daniel Reeves. Stand down. The biological threat has been contained." Silence. Then a cold reply. "Captain Reeves, report to custody immediately. You are harboring an unauthorized xeno-organism." Daniel's jaw tightened. He muted the channel and turned to Phyrexia. "We need a plan. Fast." The hive awakens. The core pulsed more rapidly now. The glowing veins spread deeper into the cavern floor. Phyrexia's eyes widened. The hive responds to the presence of the child. It is awakening. The ground shook violently as the walls shifted. Hidden chambers opened, revealing hundreds of dormant cocoon-like pods embedded in the rock. The pods pulsed with faint light, each one containing a curled insectoid form. The hive slumbered, Phyrexia said, voice trembling. But the core kept them alive, waiting for a fertile queen. Now, with my hybrid signature, they awaken. Daniel watched in awe as the pods began to crack open. From within emerged smaller, leaner versions of Phyrexia, Orethian drones, blinking and stretching as though waking from a long, dark dream. Phyrexia raised her arms. The drones turned toward her in perfect unison. "The hive lives," she said aloud, voice filled with ancient authority. "And we will not die here." The final battle. The hive chamber trembled beneath their feet as the newly awakened drones emerged from their crystalline pods. Daniel Reeves stood beside Phyrexia, pulse racing as he tried to process the sight before him. The drones, smaller than Phyrexia, but just as fearsome, moved in perfect synchronization. Their sleek exoskeletons shimmered with faint bioluminescent veins, matching the hive core's violet hue. Each one turned its eyes toward Phyrexia, awaiting her command. "The hive awakens," Phyrexia said, voice filled with ancient authority. "But they are newborns, untrained, fragile. We must protect them." Daniel tightened his grip on his plasma pistol. "Yeah, but we're out of time. The Terran fleet's probably recalibrating their weapons as we speak, and the Skarn, they won't stay gone for long." The ground shook violently, as if to confirm his fears. Cracks formed along the cavern walls. The hive core pulsed with warning signals. Phyrexia placed her hand on the core. The ancient system responded, projecting a map into the air. Daniel's heart sank. 3 Skarn biosignatures had entered the system. One was massive, larger than the Skarn queen they had already defeated. "The Skarn Prime," Phyrexia whispered, "the source of their brood. It has come to claim me." Daniel rubbed his temples. "So we've got Earth ready to nuke the planet from orbit, and a Skarn mothership heading straight for us. Great, just great." The comm on his wrist crackled again. "Captain Reeves, this is Commander Grant. We have overridden the planetary shield and initiated orbital bombardment countdown. You have 5 minutes to surrender or face total sterilization." Daniel cursed. "They won't listen to reason. Humans fear what they do not understand," Phyrexia said. "We must show them why they should fear the Skarn instead." The gamble. Daniel's mind raced. "Okay, if the Terran fleet thinks you're a threat, let's give them a bigger one to worry about." He pointed at the core. "Can we amplify the signal that attracted the Skarn in the first place?" Phyrexia frowned. "Yes, but why?" "If we blast the signal across all frequencies, it'll do 2 things. First, it'll draw every Skarn in the system toward us. They'll swarm the planet instead of scattering. Second, the humans will see exactly what we're dealing with. If they realize we're fighting off an entire parasitic armada, maybe they'll stop treating us like the enemy." Phyrexia hesitated. "It's a dangerous plan. The Skarn may overwhelm us." Daniel met her gaze. "They will if we sit here doing nothing." She nodded and pressed her palms to the core. The crystal veins pulsed brighter, turning crimson as the distress beacon activated. A low, resonant tone echoed through the cavern and into the atmosphere. "The Skarn arrive." The effect was immediate. The vibrations intensified. The map projected a dozen smaller Skarn craft, swarming toward the planet like ravenous insects drawn to a flame. The largest signal grew closer, the Skarn Prime. "It comes," Phyrexia said, voice grim. The hive drones hissed, their limbs snapping into defensive positions. Daniel watched them anxiously. They were newborns, untested in battle. From the surface, muffled explosions rumbled. The Terran fleet had begun orbital bombardment. The ground shook as kinetic rounds slammed into the shield. The hive fights back. Phyrexia's eyes flared with determination. She extended her mind toward the drones. "We fight for the future," she commanded. The drones responded instantly, forming defensive ranks. The Skarn broke through the upper tunnels with terrifying speed. The first wave flooded the cavern in a skittering mass of legs and jaws. The drones surged forward. Daniel fired his plasma pistol into the chaos, the cavern filled with flashes of energy and the shrieks of dying creatures. The drones fought fiercely, moving as one. "More coming through the west tunnel," Daniel shouted. Phyrexia gestured toward the passage. Half the drones shifted to block the entry point. Suddenly, a new sound rumbled overhead. The ceiling cracked apart as the Scarn Prime's massive legs punched through. The creature descended into the chamber with sickening grace. The Scarn Prime dwarfed every other creature in the hive. Its carapace shimmered with a sickly green glow, and its eyes locked onto Threxia. Its voice vibrated through the air in guttural tones. "Queen, you are ours." Threxia raised her arms. "I am no longer yours to claim." The Scarn Prime lunged. The core's last stand. Daniel sprinted toward the core, ignoring the chaos around him. The hive's defenses were failing. The Terran bombardment continued above. The Scarn Prime tore through the drones like paper. Reaching the core, Daniel yanked his DNA sequencer from his pack. "Come on," he muttered. "Give me something." The core's interface glitched. Human and Orethian genetic codes spiraled across the surface. An idea hit him. "Threxia," he shouted, "the Scarn track you through your hybrid DNA. If we overload the core with your new signature, it'll emit a pulse strong enough to fry their sensory organs." "It could kill me," she warned. Daniel's heart twisted. "I won't let that happen. But we have no other choice." Threxia turned toward the core, then looked at the surviving drones. "Protect the child," she commanded. She placed her hands on the crystal surface. Daniel sensed his sequencer to the core and activated the overload. The core screamed with energy. The crimson veins turned blinding white. The Scarn Prime roared and charged toward them. The core unleashed a shockwave that slammed through the cavern. The Scarn screeched in agony as their sensory organs collapsed under the genetic frequency blast. The Prime convulsed, collapsing in a heap. Threxia collapsed as well. Daniel caught her just before she hit the ground. "Threxia, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open. "The hive survives." Outside, the Terran bombardment ceased. The comm crackled. "Captain Reeves, we saw everything." "The Scarn, that was what you were fighting." Commander Grant's voice was no longer cold, just stunned. Daniel pressed the comm button. "Yeah. And if we hadn't been here, the Scarn would have spread beyond this planet. You'd be next." Silence followed. Then, "Acknowledged. We're standing down." Daniel sagged with relief. A new dawn. Hours later, the core stabilized. The remaining drones tended to the injured, while Daniel sat beside Threxia. "The child lives," she said softly, touching her abdomen. Daniel smiled. "So does the hive." The core pulsed with soft, hopeful light. A new dawn. The hive core pulsed softly in the cavern's heart, casting violet light over the battlefield. The stench of scorched kidden lingered in the air. Broken Scarn bodies lay strewn across the stone floor, their parasitic invasion defeated. The surviving Orethian drones moved in synchronized patterns, clearing debris and tending to their wounded queen. Daniel Reeves knelt beside Threxia, cradling her head. Her exoskeleton was cracked in several places, her bioluminescent veins flickering like a fading candle. Her breath came in shallow, uneven gasps. "Stay with me, Threxia," Daniel whispered, voice tight. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly. "The hive. Lives." Daniel smiled despite the ache in his chest. "Yeah, we won. The Scarn Prime is dead." The fleet stopped the bombardment. The core's still functioning. And he gently touched her abdomen. "The child is still safe." Threxia's mandibles trembled as a soft mental sigh escaped her. "Then the future has survived." Daniel held her hand. "We need you too. Don't give up now." The hive core responded to Threxia's weakened biosignature, projecting a stream of genetic patterns into the air. Daniel's eyes darted over the symbols. "Wait, the core is prioritizing your body's energy for the pregnancy," he realized. "It's draining your life force to protect the child." "The core follows ancient protocols," Threxia said weakly. "It will sacrifice the queen to ensure the heir lives." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Not if I can help it." The gamble. Daniel sprinted to the core and plugged in his portable DNA sequencer. The interface flickered with unfamiliar alien code. His hands trembled as he tried to override the core's reproductive protocol. "Come on, you stubborn piece of rock," he muttered. "Work with me." The core resisted. Its ancient programming prioritized survival above all else. Daniel's heart raced as Threxia's life signals dropped further. "Think, Reeves. Think." He remembered how the core responded when it believed Threxia was a hybrid. He'd tricked the system before. Maybe he could do it again. He accessed the hormonal markers associated with the heir. Carefully, he duplicated the hormonal signature and applied it to Threxia's biosignature as well. If the core recognized her as part of the child's essential survival matrix, it might redirect the energy back to her. The console beeped angrily. Rejected. Damn it. Daniel slammed a fist on the control pad. Sweat dripped from his forehead. "Daniel." Threxia's voice was faint. "You must let me go." "No," he snapped. "I promised I'd help you. I don't break promises." She didn't respond. Her eyes dimmed further. Daniel closed his eyes, breathing deeply. The core's interface swam before him in alien patterns. And then he saw it. A faint secondary pathway marked by a genetic code unfamiliar to the hive's normal patterns. The hybrid DNA. The core wasn't rejecting Threxia. It was struggling to classify her hybrid state. If he could amplify that new genetic structure, maybe the core would adapt. "Hold on, Threxia," Daniel whispered. He adjusted the sequencer, selecting the hybrid DNA markers and linking them directly to the core's command interface. He hit execute. The core went dark. The cavern fell into eerie silence. Then, with a deep, resonant hum, the entire chamber lit up. The violet veins turned bright gold. The core's glow surged into Threxia's body through the crystal floor. She arched her back and screamed, the energy coursing through her form. Her limbs trembled as the core recalibrated itself around the hybrid genetic blueprint. Daniel gritted his teeth, watching the monitors. Threxia's vital signs surge. The core's priority protocols shifted from the heir alone to the queen and heir as a single unit. Her breathing steadied. Her bioluminescent veins stabilized to a steady amber hue. The core released a deep, harmonic tone. Daniel dropped to his knees, chest heaving. "Please tell me that worked." Threxia opened her eyes. They shone brighter than ever, deep amber with a shimmering blue halo. "You did it," she said softly. Daniel laughed with exhausted relief. "Yeah, I guess I did." The fleet's decision. The ground trembled again, but this time from above. Daniel's comm crackled to life. "Captain Reeves, this is Commander Grant. We've been monitoring your core signatures from orbit. What the hell happened down there?" Daniel stood and activated his comm. "We stopped the Skarn invasion. The Queen is no longer a threat to Earth, and we got the first hybrid Orathian human life form growing here. If you destroy this planet, you destroy a new species." Silence followed. Then Grant replied, "Earth Command wants you detained, and the Queen contained. The Senate is afraid of what you've created." Daniel's heart sank. "So what now? You fire on us anyway." "No," Grant said with a sigh. "But we can't protect you either. You're on your own. If the Skarn come back, or anyone else, you'll have to handle it yourselves." Daniel looked at Threxia. She gave a faint nod of understanding. "Then we will handle it," she said into the comm. "This world is our sanctuary now. We will defend it." The hive rises. Days passed. The Terran fleet withdrew. The hive drones worked tirelessly to repair the core and fortify the cavern's defenses. Daniel sat beside Threxia, watching the drones install crystal-based perimeter systems. Her body had fully recovered. Her abdomen glowed faintly with the presence of the developing hair. "The child is strong," Threxia said, placing a hand on her abdomen. Daniel smiled. "So is their mother." She turned to him, eyes serious. "We are no longer just Orathian. The hive has evolved. I feel new instincts, New ideas. The human part of me influences the hive's structure. We are more adaptable now. Daniel leaned forward. And the scarn. Will they come back? Without their prime, they are disorganized. But parasites always seek new hosts. They will return. Daniel's expression darkened. Then we'd better get ready. The beacon. The hive core emitted a new signal, a faint, encrypted pulse sent across subspace. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What was that? A message, Threxia said. To who? To those like us. Across the stars, other dying species may exist. We are no longer Orethian or human. We are something new. A hybrid hive. Daniel exhaled slowly. You're sending out a signal, inviting others to find us. Threxia nodded. We survived by uniting across species. If we wish to survive what comes next, we must do so again. The final revelation. The core map shifted to show the subspace transmission's trajectory. Daniel's eyes locked onto a faint signature appearing on the far edge of the galaxy. Wait, he said. That can't be right. Threxia stepped beside him. The core displayed an enormous, unidentified object drifting through deep space. It emitted a biological energy signature similar to the scarn, but vastly larger. The broodmind, Threxia whispered. The intelligence that controls all scarn. Daniel's breath caught. And we just announced our existence to it. The storm approaches. On the distant edges of the galaxy, a colossal organic structure stirred from dormancy. The broodmind's consciousness flickered to life. It had heard the call. Its parasitic tendrils stretched toward the coordinates of Orithis Prime. A fertile queen, and new genetic potential. It fought with cold hunger. The hive world was no longer hidden, and the scarn never forgot a lost meal.